One way to reveal your true self: see action without a doer. That's the practice. This is going to be your practice because whenever you perform an action, whatever that action may be, there's always this sense of, I am doing this action behind it. In other words, you feel the sense of doership. You feel the sense of agency. You feel as if you're this person, you're this body that's committing the action, that has motivation behind the action. And because you hold this motivation, you also feel as if you're the person who's receiving the result of that action. In other words, you feel hungry, and because you feel hungry, you feel like you need to go to the kitchen to make yourself some food, and you eat the food and you get fulfilled by eating the food. And that entire chain of cause and effect is something that you believe you experienced. That's a typical experience most people are having. When you experience life in this manner, it just means you're holding the perception of duality. You're seeing yourself as this individual being, as this limited character that's playing a role, and you're experiencing this character inside a world. So you believe yourself to be this person inside of a world. And because you believe you're this person, you're also going to believe and experience and perceive yourself to be this person experiencing many different things, such as emotions, feelings, sensations, any type of experience that a human being would experience. So you're constantly feeling yourself as being this doer. If you keep experiencing life this way, in other words, if you keep experiencing yourself being a doer, then it only means you're perpetuating duality. And this is not going to allow you to reveal your own truth, which is non-duality. And when I say non-duality, I mean pure, non-dual, actionless awareness. Because in truth, you're not doing anything, because you're not the body. You're actually pure, non-dual, actionless awareness. And if that's the case, then why does it seem, or why does it feel like you're the one who's doing something? You only feel that way because consciousness is entangled in the body, and it feels like consciousness is coming from inside the body. And so long as you feel as if consciousness is coming from inside the body, which is perpetuating the illusion or the perception of separation, you will continue to feel as if you have will. You will continue to feel as if you're making choices, as if you're making decisions, as if you are a doer. That's the illusion. And so if you keep operating in this manner, that experience will keep on generating. It'll just be a perpetual experience that you keep experiencing. So in order to break this, you have to find some means in order to remove that entanglement that consciousness has on the character. One such way is to see action without a doer. Because in truth, you are not a doer. That's an illusion. When you rest as actionless consciousness, all you're doing is observing without being involved. And when I say without being involved, I mean you literally have nothing to do with what is apparently happening. The apparent actions that are unfolding, you have nothing to do with because you're just observing it unfold in your awareness. There is no one controlling that. It only feels as if you have control when you're identified as this body inside the projection. It's like you went from watching TV, right? Watching a movie on TV and then drifting inside the movie and not finding yourself as this character playing inside the movie. When in truth, all you're doing is watching the screen. When you watch the screen, you're not this body, you're not the character, you're not the role, you're just pure actionless awareness. And that actionless awareness does not do anything. It is not a doer. So if you feel as if you're the doer, it will feel as if you have will. And because you feel like you have will, then start using something to break free from that will. Because if you don't do something about it, you're going to keep feeling as if you have will, and therefore you will keep being entangled in this character. When you see action without doer, think about how much your life will transform. So you perceive yourself as this person who is doing something. Imagine if you stop believing that you're not doing anything. Imagine if you just start seeing that the body is doing something without your control. After all, the body beats the heart on its own. The body breathes on its own. It's not like you're forcing those things, they just naturally happen. See, in truth, everything is really just spontaneous activity. It's just spontaneous activity, but the mind tries to assume, or it tries to make sense of that spontaneous activity by believing it's the one making those activities happen. So it feels the sense of, I am doing this. But that sense of feeling I am doing this is only happening after the action has been made. That's the illusion. That's the illusion. If you practice seeing action without a doer, you'll be able to step back and catch that and see that it really happened without you doing anything. And so this becomes a constant practice of just stepping back and allowing things to happen without controlling it. That's the practice. See action without a doer. You're going to keep doing this. And when you keep doing this, you'll start to notice how actions naturally change. Because it's only when you're completely identified with the character that is feeling as if it's doing something and receiving something that the character reacts to situations, the character feels emotions, feels pain, feels shame, feels guilt. Imagine stepping back from that and not being so intimately involved in whatever it is that the character is feeling. The character naturally stops feeling that way because it's a reflection of awareness. And so if your attention is now retracing its steps back to its source, which is actionless consciousness, the reflection of the character will naturally fade. In a sense, it'll start to give up a lot of these feelings that arises, and so it wouldn't be as budged as it were before. So of course, if you start performing this practice and you remain dedicated to it and you do it as much as you can, you'll feel less agency, you'll feel less doership, and by feeling less doership and less agency, things naturally slip away. You don't hold on to it as much. Just think about it. The suffering that we experience in life is really you just holding on to something. Whatever it is, whatever type of suffering it is, it's only because you're holding on to something. Furthermore, because you believe that you're the individual that's holding on to something, you'll continue to experience and feel as if you're the individual who's suffering. And so the only way to remove that suffering is to remove that doership, remove that agency, and see that your choiceless, actionless awareness that does not act, that does not do. Because actionless awareness doesn't do anything. It just is. So you literally have to just constantly see action without a doer. The more you do this, the more you'll see that actions are really just happening on its own by itself. And I'm not just saying to see the action that the body does without a doer. I'm literally saying see every action without a doer. Because normally what we usually believe and experience is that because we feel as if we're the doer, then when we look at others, we intimately know that, okay, well, if I'm doing something, they're also doing something. And so there's this immediate sense of ownership tied to every experience. And because you constantly believe that, you perceive things that way, and you're just perceiving duality because you feel like you're separate from everything else. Stop seeing action without a doer. Start seeing it without a doer. Start seeing every action, no matter what that action is, without a doer. If you start seeing everything as just this autonomous, mechanical, spontaneous expression, then you'll start coming closer to that awareness, which sees it as an autonomous, mechanical, spontaneous expression, because that's literally what's happening. You only feel as if you have agency and doership because you're entangled in the expression and not believe that you're the one who's doing something. When in truth, it's really just being done on its own by itself. The truth of reality is there is no controller or doer behind anything. In truth, all roles are actually empty. You only fulfill that role by giving yourself this sense of agency, this sense of doership. And that itself is the ego. And so long as you're entangled in the ego, so long as the ego is solidified as this character, as this person inside of a dream, you'll keep feeling as if you have will. You'll keep feeling as if you're doing something. And if you don't do anything about it, even though you're inside the dream, you'll remain stuck in the dream until you realize that there needs to be something that needs to be done to get away from that dream. And when I say get away from that dream, I don't mean you're removing yourself from the dream as if you can remove yourself from the dream. In truth, you're really just seeing through the dream and seeing that it's really just actionless, choiceless awareness. So you have to keep constantly seeing action without a doer. That's the practice. When you start doing this, you'll start to see that it's really just a spontaneous activity. It's really just mechanical. Things are happening on its own by itself. There's no one really controlling anything. But the more you give sense of these actions, the more you take them on personally, is the more you'll solidify yourself as this dream character inside of a story. But the more you take it impersonally, which is to step back and not give in to the illusion of doership, the more you retrace your steps back to source, which is just really seeing everything as an unfolding projection that's generating in awareness, that's inseparable from awareness. And so from that point of view, everything is just one. There is just one awareness. There is no perception of separation. Nothing is seen outside of yourself. It's just empty awareness. So constantly see all action without a doer. If you keep doing this, you're coming closer to the truth of there being only actionless awareness that does not do anything. It just is.